All right. Evening, everyone. How we doing? How are all of my lawful and responsible gun owning friends out there doing? Thank you so much for joining us for our June Monday Night Live right here on YouTube. It's going to be an hour of just us BSing back and forth. If you got questions, go ahead and start getting them in now. I'm going to do a few opening comments, but if you got some questions, go ahead and put them in now. If you want to make comments, go ahead and make your comments too. If you're going to put questions in, start with a couple of question marks and then put your question in, because as I'm scanning through the chat feature over here on the other screen, I'll have an opportunity to catch them more quickly and get your questions answered, because that's really the most important thing that we want to do. So before we get into all of that, I want to give a couple of shout outs. The first shout out I want to give to is the good folks over at Palmetto State Armory. I got this text message from my brother-in-law. Probably can't see it right there. I'll read it to you. Don't worry. But got a brother-in-law, super good guy, and he has recently gotten into firearms. And of course, he's got the bug now. And so he went to buy some new toys at Palmetto State Armory, and he got this message which says, let me read this to you. Due to increased demand, please expect delays in shipping items. Washington State Magazine orders will be prioritized so they can be delivered before July 1st, 2022. So kudos to the good folks at Palmetto State Armory for taking care of all of us out here in Washington who want to remain lawful and responsible gun owners. And yeah, this is the time that we should be ordering more magazines. We should definitely, this is a daily thing that's happening here at my office. I've gotten a lot of magazines. I've gotten a lot of magazines for firearms that I don't have yet. And we're going to talk about magazines in just a minute here. So anyways, wanted to give a huge shout out to Palmetto State Armory. The other shout out I want to give to is Security Gun Club down in Woodinville. Now, if those of you who are not familiar with Security Gun Club, and it's security spelled with an E at the end instead of a Y, it's a unique little spelling, but check them out. This place is the Taj Mahal of gun clubs. Okay, it really is absolutely the best facility you will ever step foot in anywhere in the state of Washington. And not only do they have a world-class facility, they got world-class customer service over there. They're kind of the Nordstrom of gun clubs, so really check them out. What I'm excited to say to announce is that I've started working a partnership with them. We're going to start doing some classes over there. So we'll get more information out over the coming weeks as we develop our good, strong alliance with Security Gun Club in Woodinville. But if any of you, I put the link in the chat feature already for them. So check out Tom. One of the owners over there was kind enough to get me involved in what they got going on. Jackson's the head of all of their training. I had an opportunity to sit through the basic handgun class, kind of audit it the other day. They do a fantastic job of training. So if you're new to firearms, and you need your training, and God knows you need your training, we all need our training. We never get enough of it. Contact the good folks over at Security in Woodinville. Okay. Now, the other things I wanted to talk to you about is new federal gun legislation. Okay, we have had a terrible couple of weeks with shooting after shooting after shooting. And so we are seeing all sorts of crazy ideas kicked around on the federal level. Now, the way this usually works is the House of Representatives is your house full of nuts on both sides, candidly. So you'll see all sorts of crazy legislation kicked around there. And it would not even shock me to see some crazy, very restrictive, very unconstitutional pieces of legislation pass out of the House of Representatives. However, we get a little bit more into the territory of sanity when we get into the United States Senate. And I do believe that we're likely to see some legislation come out of this horrible spree we've had of fatal shootings or mass shootings. But, everyone needs to weigh in on this. I'll give you an example of a couple of things. Here's just one representative. He's like, hey, I got an idea. We're going to tax AR-15s at 1,000%. I'm sure that will pass constitutional muster. And then, of course, Steve Kerr has also, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, has all sorts of ideas how we can restrict guns without violating Second Amendment rights. And whenever we are concerned about complicated constitutional issues, I think we should routinely defer to Steve Kerr. candidly, I would defer to Coach Kerr if I wanted to understand the box and one defense or something like that. But I think when it comes to constitutional issues and your constitutional rights, I'll defer to people that have a little more expertise there. But here's what I do think is coming out of the federal legislation. I do believe that there is going to be a big push for red flag laws on a nationwide level, whether the federal government puts in a federal red flag law and allows it to occur in federal courts, or if they mandate it to states through some type of funding and dangling critical funding in front of them in order to get them to implement red flag laws. I think the effect that it has on us here in Washington State will be next to nothing because we have red flag laws. We call them ERPOs, Extreme Risk Protection Orders, RCW 7.94. They've been in existence for a few years. I've represented dozens of people on them. And I just did a video that actually came out today to kind of give everyone else from the country an idea of, hey, here's how a red flag law works and doesn't work. And you guys can check that video out. So that's what I think that we're going to see a big push for a federal red flag law. There seems to be some support for that from some members of the GOP. I also think you can see a push to raise the purchase age of assault rifles, semi-automatic rifles. Let's get the term correct. Semi-automatic rifles from 18 to 21 across the board. Now, we know that the Ninth Circuit just recently flipped California's rule, and I think there's a real question as to whether or not now Washington's rule remains constitutionally viable at this point. I do anticipate that the state of California will be appealing. They'll probably impanel the full Ninth Circuit, and similar to what happened in Duncan v. Bonta, the magazine restriction, the fix will be in, and away we go. All right. So those are a few of the comments. Now, the last couple things. First of all, I'm going to go to the last comment. Next month, we do this the first Monday of each month. But next Monday is the 4th of July. Next month, first Monday of next month, I should say, is the 4th of July. And why I may not have better things to be doing that day, I'm sure all of you do, and which, of course, would be celebrating our independence, especially while we still have some semblance of it. So we're not going to be doing a Monday Night Live in July. We're going to take a summer vacation. I will probably pre-tape something for all of you as a special little 4th of July treat, because it is actually it is probably my favorite holiday for lots of reasons. I'm a fair weather guy and I like the summertime, and I have a tendency to be a little patriotic as well. So, okay. And now here's the big news I wanted to talk to you guys about. And then we're going to start getting to some of these questions. Okay. Magazine bans. Okay. We did a video a couple months ago called "How Can You Help the Firearms Policy Coalition Overturn the Magazine Ban?" And so a lot of you jumped in. You were awesome. And I got a lot of calls like, hey, they're not returning my call, but I appreciate all of you who threw your hat in the ring. Totally awesome. Okay. But then we did a video right at the first of this month saying, hey, you're down to 30 days to buy magazines. Well, the Firearms Policy Coalition has, in fact, filed a lawsuit for injunctive relief. It has been filed in the Western District of the state of Washington in the United States Federal Court. Now, there's a couple things we'll talk about that. So that means we're dealing with the Ninth Circuit here if this thing continues on up. The plaintiff is a woman named Gabriella Sullivan. The name of the case is Sullivan v. Ferguson. The plaintiffs are Gabriella Sullivan, a plain old regular law-abiding citizen like all of you folks, lawful, responsible gun owner, owns a firearm and a rifle, both of which have standard capacity magazines that well exceed 10 rounds, and she is asking for relief from this law. Rainier Arms LLC, a very reputable FFL in the Puget Sound region, is also a party to this suit because they, of course, sell and now will be prohibited from selling and importing high-capacity magazines, high capacity as defined by the statute. And then we have the Second Amendment Foundation, Alan Gottlieb, always there on the fight, and then Firearms Policy Coalition. They are the named plaintiffs. Who's the defendant? Well, of course, your Attorney General, Bob Ferguson, is a named defendant, as is the chief of the Washington State Patrol, and then the chiefs of police and the prosecuting attorneys in Kitsap, Thurston, and King County, because those are the three counties in which the law is being challenged. And they would, of course, the chief of police, the sheriff of that county, and the prosecuting attorney would be in charge of enforcing the magazine capacity ban come July 1st. So this was filed just a couple of days ago. I read the complaint, and I'm actually, right before we went live, I was working on editing a video that I'll hopefully have out tomorrow The link is there. If you guys want to geek out on the opinion yourself, you can go ahead and geek out on the opinion yourself. Not the opinion, I should say, the complaint that was filed. They have a local attorney who has brought in a pretty big time national firm out of Washington, D.C., whose resume is pretty impressive as far as the other types of major Second Amendment litigation on an appellate level that they've handled. I mean, they've handled some big time stuff. And that's exactly the way this type of litigation should be handled. It should not be handled by someone who's just tinkering with it. Okay, you need to bring in the big guns when we're fighting this type of warfare. So, anyways, kudos to all of them for getting off the schneid and getting a lawsuit. And obviously, we will keep you posted about how this goes. They're asking for injunctive relief. Injunctive relief says, hey, we're asking the court to order law enforcement and the Attorney General to not enforce this law effective July 1st. You cannot enforce this law. This law is unconstitutional. Now, because it's being filed in the federal court, the U.S. court, that means that the whole analysis is going to be conducted under the Second Amendment. And I'm not opposed to that. But the problem is that analysis has already been conducted using the Second Amendment by several other courts. And there's some authority out there to suggest that magazine bans may be permissible. Now, we did a video a few weeks ago, and I'll find it later and put the link up. But it was about how I believe that Article 1, Section 24 of the Washington State Constitution actually provides us with more protection than the Second Amendment based upon the language that our legislature chose when they drafted it. Now, of course, when you're fighting an action in federal court, you're only going to be fighting under the federal Constitution. State questions of state law, the application of a state constitution, is going to be handled by a state court. And that means that we would be stuck with the Washington State Supreme Court, which I have no faith in striking down any type of firearm regulation. All right. So, endoplastic rectillum, great name. ATF proposed Rule 2021R-08, factoring criteria for firearms with attached stabilizing brace. Has rule been officially published yet? Yes, the rule's been officially published, and the rule goes into effect, I believe, in August of this year. Danny Pierce, waiting 135 days on a Form 4 right now for suppressor. Okay, Danny, it's an interesting thing. I have been hearing some good stories about the Form 4s, okay? If you're going and you're buying it from a good reputable manufacturer, good reputable FFL, paperwork's getting done. I had one guy tell me it took him 17 days to get a Form 4 approval for a can. 135 days on a Form 4, I would not say is crazy right now, but I would be a little concerned. But I have not had any story that I can recall about someone recently having a Form 4 rejected. Now, a Form 1, whole different story. If you guys are going to try to be building suppressors and doing a Form 1, good luck to you. Go throw rocks at the moon, too, because I think that you got about an equal chance. So, Danny, I'm going to be real interested to know if you hear back. Shoot me an email if something doesn't happen. And obviously, if you get a rejection, shoot me an email and let's figure out what the hell's going on there, okay? Okay, Fat Boy TW78, I have a few questions have crossed my mind. Well, let's hear them. Okay, the 14-inch shotgun base frame, can be kept concealed or loaded in the car if a CPL is held? So if we are talking about, let's say, the Remington is it the Remington TAC 14 and the Mossberg Shockwave? If we're talking about those bird head grips and things like that, I have done a video on that. The problem with those firearms is that while they're clearly not meant to be shouldered, they are not also clearly meant to be fired one-handed. And so I think you're going to end up with a situation where law enforcement, it's going to really be a judgment call of law enforcement. If they find that in the automobile, certainly some police departments are going to make a big deal out of it. Shotguns in general have very light triggers, which is one of the reasons we have 77-15-460, which prohibits shotguns being loaded in the car while the car is underway. Check out the video on that. I do have more answers for you. Michael Blake, I'm getting way more mags than I ever might need, so I don't have to worry about replacement springs being banned later. Yes, amen to that. And I really do think you guys, if you have, well, I already got 8 magazines for this firearm. Listen, if it's a firearm you know you're going to keep for a long time and probably the one that you go into the range with a lot, you're going to run a bunch of ammo through it over the next decade. You might want to have some backup magazines now, okay? Otherwise, we're going to end up in this whole black market smuggling magazines back into the state of Washington, okay? King of Kings, Moon Pie, anything from Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, and others working on this. What about the Supreme Court? That may have come in before I got to my last point that I was talking about, King of Kings. But yes, the Firearms Policy Coalition, for those of you who are just joining us right now, the Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation, Rainier Arms, and then a individually named plaintiff by the last name of Sullivan has filed for a suit in in the Western District of the United States Federal Circuit Court, where they are requesting injunctive relief to stop Senate Bill 5078 from going into effect July 1st. I put the link. If you look at the top of the chat, you'll see the link from the Firearms Policy Coalition. If you go to that, you can actually go down and read the complaint, which I have right here. And I'll have a video out on that tomorrow to get you up to speed. So this is going to be a topic that I want all of us to kind of geek out on and kind of carefully watch this. I also have another video series coming up next week about a sailor back in the East Coast that is getting the runaround from the ATF in the worst way possible. It's a horrible story. It's like a 60-minute story. This kid's doing nothing wrong, and yet the ATF wants to throw this kid in prison forever. So I'm going to be doing a couple videos on him next week. We're going to be talking to his attorney, and we're going to set up a GoFundMe account because this kid, I say kid because he's a lot younger than me. He's a sailor in the United States Navy, been in there for 10 years. This kid's getting railroaded, and we all, I think, need to help this kid out. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, okay. Fat Boy TW78. You shouted out to an Ellensburg outdoor range, I believe. Can you mention the name of that range again? Yeah, listen, I shoot in a lot of places, but I really most enjoy shooting outdoors, even handguns. I just enjoy shooting outdoors. Cascade Field and Stream Club. It's in the wind farm right up between Cle Elum and Ellensburg. It is one of the most gorgeous spots in the entire state. I think they got about 70 acres, separate rifle, shotgun, handgun, long-range rifle, archery. They got all separate ranges there. The people up there are fantastic. So Cascade Field and Stream Club, I think it's got a Cle Elum address, a Cle Elum P.O. box for a mailing address. I've been a member up there for a few years and absolutely love the place. And I have videos that I've shot up there that I've never put out on the channel because I've just kind of decided that they just didn't really fit the channel real well. So anyways, good question. All right. Braden Nelson, under the municipal codes for Kirkland, it looks like suppressors are illegal in Kirkland. Well, Braden, let's you and I talk about that. But here's the thing. We know under RCW 9.41.290, the state preemption law, that any firearm restrictions, how we carry, what we get to carry, where we get to carry, when we get to carry, anything related to firearms has to be uniform across the state under RCW 9.41290. So the city of Kirkland cannot have a suppressor ban, and because that would not hold up constitutional measure. Ask the city of Edmonds what happens when you try to come up with your own safe storage law and you end up getting trounced in the Supreme Court. But give me a call about that one. We can talk about it a little bit more. Robert Wood, how can the ATF change rules for how an AR pistol is classified without grandfathering in those that acquired the weapons under their current rules? Well, Robert Wood, that is a fantastic question. Here's a better question. How can the ATF just change the rules at all? Okay, why don't we just have the legislature, actually, if they want to change the definition of things, why don't we just have Congress do what their duty is, and they can pass the laws. But see, because Congress is incapable of acting on anything, they sick their little bulldog, the ATF, out there to just change the rules midstream. Check out the video about how is the ATF going to enforce the pistol brace rule, because I do believe that all of us could really essentially be grandfathered in so long as the ATF or an FFL never comes into contact with any of our firearms if they are in an AR pistol format. Let's back up for a second. We know that a lot of us own AR pistols, and the ATF has a new scoring criteria, Form 4999, which will have a 4-point scale. And it's really, without getting too geeky on it, and again, we got videos on our channel about it, is anything in the configuration of the firearm would suggest that the firearm is meant to be shouldered is going to get you points. Once you get to 4 points or more, you're an SBR, you're not an AR pistol. Tax stamp time, Form 4 time, the whole bit, okay? So that's what's going on. But if we take a look at how they're going to possibly enforce it, and we take a look at all the other regulations, really the only way the ATF is going to be able to run 4999s on everything is it's any firearm that's really going to go into an FFL and then have to stay overnight to be worked on or something like that. That in all likelihood will require FFLs to do kind of an audit on that particular gun. Certainly if the ATF has reasons to contact you. Do they have the resources, the manpower, and everything necessary to start kicking around on everyone's doors who they think might have an AR pistol so they can get it out and run it through the criteria? No, they don't. If you have an AR pistol that needs work on, let's say it's something wrong with the trigger, I would perhaps just remove the trigger and take it to the FFL, or certainly strip it down, take just the lower in there. They won't know whether that lower came from a pistol or a rifle, and then there's nothing really to run it through. So good question. Check out the videos we've done on that. I know that's a big thing for a lot of people coming up right now. And the question is, how can they change it? Who knows? All right. Sean, 1979, in your opinion, what's the best way to stop school shootings? I think getting rid of gun-free zones. Okay, this is a loaded topic that I have resisted talking about, but let me give you my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. And I do try to keep things, for those of you who geek out on the channel, know I try to keep things politically as neutral as I can, but I think you all know which way I lean. Okay, there are 3 issues as I see it with school shootings. Okay, there is an access to firearm issue, there is a mental health issue, and there is a school security issue. Now, depending on what political spectrum you're coming from, you're going to believe that either it is predominantly dominated by one of these issues or exclusively dominated by one of these issues. Now, let's just take a look at all 3 of them and which one could we most likely have the quickest fix to, okay? Let's talk about, well, it's the guns, okay? Well, first of all of us here right now, all 162 of you that are watching right now, we know that the guns are not really the problem, okay? We know that guns don't go off by themselves. It's a people problem. It's not a gun problem, okay? But try to convince that to the anti-gunners, and that's also like throwing rocks at the moon. Now, there are those on the opposite end of the spectrum who believe that the actual issue is more guns. We could solve the problem by more guns. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, and there is a lot of truth to that, okay? But if the guns were exclusively the problem, how long is it going to take to get the guns away from everybody? I mean, that's a generational thing. You could ban the Second Amendment today, and first of all, and start a gun confiscation, and good luck. Because in this country, between the number of lawful gun owners who would say, hell no, I'm not giving them up, and the number of unlawful guns we got running around on our streets, it would literally take 100 years of complete effort to even come close to disarming the United States. So taking the guns from everyone does not solve the problem, except maybe 100 years down the road. Okay, now we take a look at the mental health side of things. There is no doubt that there is a mental health problem, okay? Normal, sane people don't do this shit, okay? We agree with that. But anytime we start talking about going down a mental health road, we got to talk about how do we diagnose, how do we treat, how do we cure, how do we do all of these things. And this is a level of medicine that takes a lot of development. And again, we're talking about a generational gap between the time we can identify a problem and come up with a solution. So why I think that mental health is an issue that absolutely needs to be considered. And I certainly think that access to firearms for certain ages are issues that are going to be discussed. What is the one thing we could actually do right this second that would actually stop some of the problem? Well, that would be to secure our schools. We could actually do something right now. We're about ready to head into summer break. We could spend this summer fortifying our schools, and this problem would damn near be alleviated by the fall. I remember back on September 11th of that when we had 4 planes hijacked, 3 flying into buildings, 1 going into a field in Pennsylvania, that we secured our airports almost within a week. And shockingly, we haven't had a single hijack incident since TSA was developed and we secured our airports. You know, the Capitol building was stormed by a bunch of protesters on January 6th. Some would call it an insurrection. I'm not going to get into that issue. But the Capitol building has remained fortified ever since then. Okay. Why then do we not fortify our schools? Why do we not protect our children the same way we protect our politicians and our soldiers and everything else? I mean, our prisoners in many ways are more protected than our children. Okay. And so, yeah, do I believe that we should do things such as have security, armed security in schools? You better believe it. Do I believe that there should be a single egress and ingress to the building, similar to what you might have in a correctional facility? Yes, I do. Do I think that this might be somewhat traumatizing to children? I don't know. It depends on how the parents want to spin it. But I also know that what's far more traumatizing is watching one of your schoolmates get blown away by some mad gunman in school. So yes, to me, the best way to stop the problem right now is to fortify the goddamn schools. Okay, let's get armed security or even plainclothes people. And if you got neighborhoods where you just don't have the resources, maybe we shouldn't have been defunding our police departments. But if you got the neighborhoods, why can't you create programs where you can send parents through extensive training and get them into a qualified position where they may be able to assist with perimeter security or anything like that that can make the schools safer? Why don't we just protect our kids like the valuable commodity that we claim they are? Because they are the most important thing. So that's my more than 2 cents on school shootings for now. Let me take a break out of that. All right. If Fat Boy TW78, if one has magazines, but said magazines get held up in the post, what should I do with them if they arrive after July 1st, but are postmarked before July 1st? Well, if they arrive to you, I would keep them. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to call law enforcement and be like, oh, actually, I got these things on July 3rd. You need to come get them. No, I mean, is someone going to likely show up on your door and do that and raid your house looking for those magazines? No, I don't. Michael Blake, if you can't own a gun until 21, you should not be allowed into the military service until 21. I do find it odd that we don't want to give semi-automatic rifles to young men and women who are 18, 19, or 20 years old. Unless, of course, they're willing to sign up and die for our country, and then we'll give them fully automatic weapons, and we'll train them how to use them really, really well. All right. Rob Ziegler, can I still order a 450 Bushmaster 10-round magazine after July 1st? 10-round magazine, yeah. 11-round magazine might be a little tricky, though. So, anyways. Larry, hello from Florida. Larry, it's really late in Florida. If you're still online, thanks a million for watching. Because the Dems test run gun laws in Washington, it seems. I think there's a lot of truth to that. That's why I just did this video about what would a federal red flag law look like. What would a federal red flag law look like? I think it's going to look a lot like what Washington's red flag laws are. RCW 7.94. Check out the video, because I really do think that perhaps the most significant piece of legislation that could come out of Washington, D.C., based upon this recent slew of gun violence, is a push by the federal government to implement red flag laws in all states. There's 19 states right now in the country that have red flag laws. Washington is one of them. That means there's 31 states in the country that doesn't have them. So it's important. It could be a very important piece of legislation. And candidly, if you want to know about what my thoughts on red flag laws are, I think if you take a look at what the intent of the red flag law, if you just looked at the purpose and the intent of the red flag law alone, not look at anything else, I think the intent is actually a pretty noble thing. I think there are things that we can do as a society to prevent some of these shootings. I think there are some things that we have a moral obligation to do, okay? The problem is the devil's always in the details, right? And once we get outside of the core ideals behind it, and instead we start looking at how do we implement this law, how do we go about procedurally making it happen, and whose constitutional rights get trampled all over in the process, you begin to see the fallacies of what red flag laws are. So red flag laws, I think, in a lot of ways, in theory, and I know some of you are going to disagree and flip out on me, and that's okay. We can have this debate. But I think in theory, it's one of those things like I think their heart's in the right place, right? The practical application of it, though, no, your constitutional rights as a lawful and responsible gun owner, they get trampled all over. They get trampled all over. There is no due process of law really in a red flag hearing. And I could go on and on and on about that. So anyways. So, hey, Peter Frey, good evening. Looking for training opportunities in North Sound, Marysville, Arlington. I don't personally know up there because I don't get up there enough. But I know that some of our awesome, lawful, and responsible gun owners will know the answers to that. So, guys, help Michael Blake out if you could, please. JR Tactical, would I still be able to buy my wife a Glock 27 passing July 1st? Okay, for any firearm where the standard capacity magazine exceeds 10 rounds, will you still be able to buy that firearm after July 1st? Yes, you can still buy that firearm, sure. Is it going to come with the normal 17-round magazine that it would if you bought it, say, in Arkansas? No, it's going to come with a 10-round magazine. So, again, if you always wanted to get that Glock 19, but just don't have the budget for it yet, or some other firearm, whatever it is, I'd just throw that out as a hypothetical. Okay, you're down to about 3 weeks to stock up on the magazines for it. And I would do that. I really would do that. Okay. All right. Not Mitch. Not Mitch is also not getting his suppressor. He's on day 294 for Form 4 on a suppressor. Wow. Day 294. Okay. Not Mitch. That is one of the crappiest stories I've heard so far. So I am sorry to hear that. Again, I've been having different stories told to me. Okay. Jeffrey Fidley. What was the lawyer group that is restructured to have representation in Washington? Jeffrey, if you're talking about a self-defense insurance company, prepaid legal services, the only company that I am aware of that is lawfully doing business in the state of Washington is U.S. Law Shield. They're based out of Texas, but they're a big, huge national operation. I've had a pleasure of working with them for a few years. You can visit them at uslawshield.com. If you go to washingtongunlaw.com, you'll see their logo displayed on my website. If you click on their logo, it will take you to their website also. And I encourage everyone, if you're interested in this, to contact the folks down at US Law Shield and talk to them and ask them all the tough questions. Make sure that you're satisfied with the answers because, it's your life, it's your money. And I believe in the product. But again, I don't want to be a salesman. I'm a lawyer. I want to be educating you guys. So talk to the folks at Law Shield. And if you believe in the product, then welcome aboard. David Newton, is your Supreme Court decisions coming out next week? Maybe. I think what David Newton means is the Supreme Court opinion, not the one dealing with Roe v. Wade. I don't even want to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. Is the New York Pistol and Rifle Association v. Bruin coming out? Well, listen, they're getting close to going on summer break here, okay? And all the opinions got to come out before they go on summer break. So this is going to be an interesting couple of weeks down the home stretch we come here. But yes, I do believe that New York Pistol and Rifle Association v. Bruin could come out this week. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the affect to us here in Washington, if they stick to the central issue, will not be that great. The affect to states like California, Maryland, New York, and some of the other states that have these may carry, Hawaii, may carry licensings where you have to establish a certain reason for which you're allowed to get a concealed carry license. New York even requires you to have a license and prove why you need to have a gun in your home. Those states could end up in significant trouble here because I do believe that the may carry statutes are in significant jeopardy at this point. I really do. Will the Supreme Court take the opportunity to expand with other additional language and kind of set out some warning shots, if you would, to other state legislatures and things like that, that in fact we have crossed the constitutional threshold on other issues? Will we begin to see telegraphing of, AR bans and magazine bans and things like that also are going to likely be met with disfavor. The big rule, excuse me, the big rule to come out of this thing, and this is when the opinion comes out, this is the thing to geek out the most is, does the Supreme Court yet again say, listen, strict scrutiny analysis, just like what we said in Heller, is the way we analyze restrictive gun regulations? Because if that is the rule of law, it is a strict scrutiny analysis. Literally none of these bans can stand constitutional test. Now, if they use an intermediate analysis, like a lot of these circuit courts, Ninth Circuit, for example, uses, well, then they get into this balancing test, and all they got to do is put their scale on the thumb. So anyways, yes, I do believe that will be coming on. All right, Nick D. Vault 57. Washington State is one of the few states that permits lawyers to have either law school or apprenticeship type experience to take the bar exam, right? Do you offer mentorship? Okay, off topic, but yeah, you actually can in Washington State. I think it's called the Rule 6 license. I think it's 6 or 7 years. You have to study under a mentor of a lawyer. They have to then certify you. You still got to take the bar exam and pass the bar exam. So I know very few people. I did know a woman who was a clerk for a judge who did it that way. The judge was a fantastic guy. So she had a really good teacher. And she went on to have a very successful career. Do I do that kind of stuff? No, I got a full-time practice. Plus, I'm trying to keep all you guys happy on YouTube and really trying to grow the Washington Gun Law brand. So I don't really have time to do that. But give me a call. I can always find some other people who may be interesting. Damien Quichocho. I'm sure I probably mispronounced that. I'm sorry, Damien. And Damien, I think you've been on every single live chat so far. So I appreciate you always showing up. Is there a waiting period for purchasing firearms from FFL's online store besides the mandatory 10-day waiting period? No, listen, the only additional waiting you have is if you walked into a FFL and bought something out of the counter, they'd start the paperwork right then and there. You'd go through your waiting period and get the phone call, go back and get your gun, okay? When you order online, where's the extra time? Well, the extra time is after you buy it online, the online company, Grab a Gun, Classic Firearms, Cheaper Than Dirt, wherever you bought it, has to then ship it to that FFL. That will take a few days to get there. Once the FFL receives it, of course, they call you, and it's as if it's now in there, because it is now in their inventory. Now you come in and you buy it as in the store. So can you get a gun, I suppose, a few days sooner if you buy something right there out of the counter from an FFL? Yeah, you probably could. Is that the right way to do it or not? I'm not going to get into that. There are markups, obviously, but I think the FFL industry really needs our help right now because ATF and a lot of other folks are really squeezing them. All right. Music Lover 03. Is it too late to buy a new handgun with a magazine that exceeds 10 rounds? The law hasn't gone into effect. How long do I have? You have until July 1st. All right, Music Lover. I would get on it right away because, again, using the last example, if we're going to buy it online, you buy it tonight. It's going to take a few days for it to get to the FFL. Then you got to get down there and do your 4473. They got to do the background check, the waiting period, and all that. And we're at June 6th today, D-Day. So you guys are running out of time if you want to do it that way, okay? Riley J2A. Good question. Are they trying to do an emergency session here in the state of Washington to try to ban assault rifles? I have not heard of any push to have a special session. However, are we likely going to see a revival of Senate Bill 5217, the AR ban? Yes, I do. Now, could the Supreme Court maybe throw some shade on that? Yeah, I think they could. I'm kind of hopeful that they will. I think the Supreme Court's about to throw shade on a lot of things this summer, and it could be a very interesting summer. Gymnastics, stop school shootings, abolish public schools. That's one way. Okay. C. Howell. As we get closer to July 1st, have you heard from any FFLs how they will proceed with the sale of new handguns with high cap mags in correlation with the 10-day waiting period? Listen, I think that any firearm that you get from an FFL effective July 1st is coming with a 10-round magazine. It's going to be California like. Buy a Glock 19, comes with a 10-round magazine. You buy any other gun with any other capacity, 15, 17, 20 rounds, whatever it is, you're getting either a plug magazine or a custom magazine. A lot of big manufacturers do make 10-round magazines for other firearms, what they call California compliant magazines. That's why I suggest you go out and buy the magazines now, even if you haven't bought the firearm. It's a little easier to budget for the magazine sometimes than it is for the firearm, okay? Okay. Alfondo Presactio. I'm hunting deer with a Winchester bolt-action high-power rifle, 243 Winchester, 180 grain bullet. Alfondo, I'm going to ask you a question. I want to make sure you are up on your hunting regulations. What is the smallest caliber that is permitted in the state of Washington to hunt big game, and what is the one exception to that caliber requirement as far as big game animal goes? I'd be very interested to know if you know that one. All right. Nukem Dukem. Good name. So I have an Ohio Ordinance M240S, which is a semi-auto belt-fed. When this mag ban goes into effect, is it going to be unlawful to purchase links, or does this not fall into the magazine accessory? I do believe that belt-fed firearms will also be an issue. I do believe if you take a look at the Senate bill, if you take a look at the language, you're going to see that, in fact, belt-fed could fall under that category as well. All right. Okay. JMac. You can give a firearm to a blood relative. How can they prove it's theirs? Gun trust? Okay. Let's take gun trust out of it. And if you guys want, and this is what I'd be interested to know, down on the chat feature, let me know if you want me to do a 1-hour chat on just about gun trust. Okay. I think we could probably do a 1-hour chat. I've been kicking around doing videos, but the topic itself can be so freaking boring that I don't know how I can make the videos even mildly entertaining to you. But I would be happy to do a 1-hour chat on gun trust. So if you guys are into that, go ahead and let me know. I'll check out the comments. Okay, so here's what it comes. Transferring a firearm to a blood relative. Let's say you and I were actual brothers, okay? Can I buy a gun and then just gift it to you? Yeah, I can, as long as I believe that you are otherwise lawfully allowed to possess a firearm, okay? Now, here's the deal. I bought the gun, and so the state of Washington Department of Licensing records say I'm the owner of the gun. And even though I gifted it to you, and we don't have to do a background check because you're my blood brother and I know you're a lawful and responsible gun owner, okay? The firearm still remains in my name, or essentially the title to the firearm, if you would, still remains in my name. Okay. And so then if you go on a crime spree and start shooting up the place and they find it, the first person they'll come talk to is me because I'm still the registered owner of the gun. I would have to then prove that I gifted it to you, sold it to you, or otherwise. Okay. Now, if you want to actually gift a firearm to a blood relative, but you want the title of the firearm, you want DOL to change records and say, hey, this ain't my gun anymore. It now belongs to Uncle Joe. You do have to go to an FFL and you do have to do an actual transfer. And an actual transfer requires a background check because an FFL by Washington state law cannot do a transfer without doing a background check. They can't, okay? So you could walk in there and it could be your dad and you guys look identical. Everyone knows it's your dad because you're just a smaller version of them, and the ID matches up and it's my dad, blah, blah, blah. And the FFL could know both of you and know you guys are totally lawful, responsible gun owners and everything. But if we're going to do a transfer where we're going to change the name of the owner of the gun a background check is going to be conducted. Now, if we have a gun trust, now you can have the grantor who basically creates the trust, a bunch of trustees who can manage the trust and enjoy all the assets. And if a trust is structured a certain way, the trustees can put assets into the trust as well. And you can also have beneficiaries, those who will receive the assets at the time that the trust dissolves, which is when the grantor dies or dissolves it some other way. We could do, like I say, a whole chat on that. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the chat feature, because I have been kicking around the idea and doing some educating on gun trust. We do gun trust here at Washington Gun Law, and I'm actually trying to set up yet another website similar to what we did with getmyrightsback.com. Will kind of help automate and streamline the process for all of us. Tyson C, hello. Thoughts on firearm policies coalition lawsuit regarding mag ban? We talked about that already, Tyson C. Tyson C, by the way, I think Tyson C and Kyle might have been my first 2 subscribers ever. Okay. So I don't know if Kyle's online right now, but Tyson C has literally been with Washington Gun Law forever. Okay. Hillbilly J, it's still sunlight out here in Washington. Yeah. So Hillbilly J, I don't know where you're at, but this time of the year, because we're up pretty far north, we're getting towards some of the longest days of the year. June 23rd is the longest day of the year. It's actually a day I usually try to play 2 rounds of golf on, because I can play in the morning and the evening and get it in. So yeah, we're going to have some of the really, really long days. Problem is, after June 23rd, technically they start getting shorter again. Jason Hotchkiss, 240 is actually to 230 is the answer to the question, what's the smallest caliber that you can use? However, the exception is, I believe you can use something smaller than that if you're hunting cougar. So I believe that's what it is. All right. I don't hunt. I personally don't hunt. I have nothing against it. I think it's a great sport. It's just not my cup of tea. Okay. See Hal. I'm sorry. See Hal, thank you for clarifying your question. What he meant was, will you be able to buy a new handgun with a high cap magazine, say June 22nd, then the 10-day waiting period? Now you're receiving the firearm after July 1st. If you receive the firearm after July 1st or later, no, you are not going to have a magazine that holds 10 rounds. I don't see how an FFL is going to be able to deliver that to you at that point. Come July 1st, it's not. Now, let me ask you this. With the original law, 5078 said that we were supposed to take glamour shots of ourselves with our magazines to, demonstrate that we own the magazines prior to July 1st. Now, that was taken out of the law, so we don't have to do that. But I was thinking about maybe all of us get together and do a bunch of glamour shots on like June 28th, June 29th, June 30th, the last days of legally being able to buy magazines like this. I was thinking of possibly doing a couple glamour shots. And if you guys want to share them on my Facebook page, maybe we can put together a little portfolio. All of us lawful and responsible gun owners, maybe you leave your face out of it. Just laying out on the beach with all your magazines or however you want to do it. Okay. Glam shots with your magazines. Let's do it on June 30th. Okay. OG Skywatch is cheaper than dirt, the cheapest way to buy mags. Listen, cheaper than dirt is often not the cheapest way to do anything. And I have a blog. Of all the blogs I've done on my website, I've never had one get more traction than the one that was basically called F cheaper than dirt. Because when we first went into pandemic mode, ammo hoarding mode, all of that, cheaper than dirt stuck it to the Second Amendment community so bad. They were price gouging so bad. I only get kind of caught it because of another YouTube, and I don't remember the guy's name. He's got a channel out here. He does good work, and he had basically done this video like, F you cheaper than dirt. And he was showing, they were selling Tulo ammo, 50 round boxes for like, $72 a box of 50 of Tulo, which is not particularly good stuff. Okay. All right. Yeah, Matt's here. So will the new post-July 1st USPCA 2-gun, 3-gun athletes have to compete with restricted mags? That's a really good question, because if you look at the statute, if they're in the military or law enforcement, have at it. You can have all the magazines you want. Let it rip. I did not see, there's nothing in the session bill on 5078 that says anything about competition shooting. So that may change the competition around here. Okay, this is a good question on Annette. Any benefit to placing the ownership of magazines into a trust before July 1st? Could all trustees possess them after the ban? So here's the thing. A firearm trust only is for firearms. Now, do I believe that you can add extra schedules to a trust to demonstrate ownership and provenance prior to July 1st, like on a Schedule B or Schedule C? Yeah, I think you could, because I'm actually doing that for a couple guys that were drafting gun trusts. One guy in particular, this guy has got a nice collection. He's a super organized guy, really, very organized. I'm sure he's really good at his job, really bright guy. And he's got every receipt for every magazine. He's got photos for everything. And this goes back years and years and years. And we're going to basically do an inventory, declare it under penalty of perjury, have it signed by a notary, have it all done before July 1st. Then if there's any questions about his ownership and provenance of those particular magazines, all whatever, how many, it could be close to 100 magazines, he will have proof signed by a lawyer. Okay. Yeah. Bruda Miranda, you're going to do, like I said, I want you guys to do your glam pics with all your magazines and send them to me like June 28th, June 29th, June 30th, right there at the end of June. We can just keep posting them on our Facebook page and you guys can all show off with your magazines. I'm hearing good feedback here on the gun trust idea. So maybe we will do something in July. We're not going to do anything on the 4th of July. Maybe we'll do something on a different night other than Monday. We'll come up with something, but we can do a little chat on gun trust and you guys can ask some questions and things like that. And I might need to hire another lawyer to help draft gun trust after that, but that's a good problem to have. Tyson C, is Tula allowed in the glam shots? Tyson, if you're shooting Tula ammo, I'd take it out of the shot. No, that's okay. I don't care. I really don't care what you guys shoot. I don't care what kind of ammo you guys shoot. I don't care what type of firearms you shoot. The gun community is a little bit like those of you who've ever gotten into wine. Okay, if you get into fine wine, you'll realize that there's all these goddamn wine snobs out there, and they want to tell you what good wine is and why you shouldn't be drinking this stuff and why you should be drinking this stuff and all that. Okay, the gun community is a little similar. Oh, this is why you need this guy. That gun's crap. Okay. At the end of the day, it comes down to personal preference. Okay. When it comes to wine, do you like it? Great. Drink it. Okay. When it comes to guns, is it a gun that you're comfortable with, that you're competent in, that you can put shots on target? Great. Awesome. Use it. Okay. What caliber is it? I really don't give two craps. What make and model is it? I don't really care. Can you use the gun proficiently and put shots on target? If the answer is yes, then carry that firearm. Okay. If the gun costs you $250, but you can save your life with it, awesome. If the gun costs you $1,500 and you can't shoot it to save your freaking life, well, then it'll make a nice, inheritance piece after your funeral. So that's what I got to say about that. Ting Ting. I got a few polymer 80s. Are they considered a non-serial item now? No, right now they are just considered a chunk of polymer. However, I do think that is changing. I think the federal regulation is actually going to affect you a lot more than the state regulation. Okay. Nitro Addiction. Hey, Primary Arms has a good deal on mags. Primary Arms does a nice job, actually, as does Palmetto State Armory. I do like them. Okay, Jason Hotchkiss. Jason Hotchkiss is going to get us the real answer because I couldn't remember the answer. So Jason Hotchkiss is going back and looking up on the 2022 Washington Big Game Hunting Regulations, page 85. Jason, tell us what the answer is. And this is exactly what we should be doing, okay? I didn't know the answer to the question. I know that Captain Anderson talked about it. So we're going to find out what the minimum caliber is for big game and the exception, which I know is cougar. How low can we go as far as a caliber on that one? A lot of comments in here about what's going on in Washington, D.C. For those of you who are late joining us, I think you're going to see a lot of super, super crazy stuff kicked around. I think a lot of people are doing it for sound bites. I think you may even see some pieces of legislation actually pass out of the House of Representatives, the cuckoo's nest, but it won't have a snowball's chance of hell of getting anywhere through the Senate, okay? Now, any legislation that could come out of the Senate should theoretically be passed by the House, but who knows? It may not be anti-Second Amendment enough for enough of them over there, and they may vote against it. What are the two pieces of legislation that I think could come out of what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now? Number one, I do think that the age of purchase of semi-automatic rifles could be raised from 18 to 21. Number two, I think there could be a significant push for federal red flag laws, or for the feds to force red flag laws onto the 31 states that don't currently have them. Beyond that, any of the stuff that Sheila Jackson Lee's talking about, Cory Booker, all the other crazy nut job ideas that we're getting, no, they do not. You got to remember, these crazy nut job ideas were not even able to be accomplished when President Obama was in his first term. And President Obama, I'm not supporting President Obama, but he actually had some clout when he came to Washington. He had control of both houses, and he had some political capital. This particular presidential administration had very little political capital coming into the White House, and spent what little they had a long time ago, and they've been running a deficit on political capital ever since then, and the debt continues to rise day by day. All right, here we go. We're going to get the answers here. All right. Let's see. Well, Jason Hopkins has not gotten back to me yet, but according to Edward Jones, who handles a lot of your guys' finances, 24 caliber or larger, 10 to 12 gauge shotgun. That's from WDFW regulations. On Cougar, according to Hillbilly J, it's a 22 caliber center fire. Okay. And listen, if your name is Hillbilly J, I think that alone qualifies you as an expert on that topic. So I'm gonna defer to you on that. Question about FRTs. You know, there is some other stuff going on with the FRTs. I should have gotten up to speed on that. I know that there's at least one lawsuit that was thrown out, but there may be a separate lawsuit which is being filed. Obviously, the ATF has gone batshit crazy on the force reset triggers, rare breed triggers, things such as that. Nitro Addiction 572, will the KSJ shotgun be outlawed after July since they have a dual 7-round tube magazine? Take a look at Senate Bill 5078. It exempts many of the tube magazines, what we typically see on shotguns. Bob Masavo, yes, Rare Breed filed another lawsuit. Okay, you know, I'm going to do Bob, thank you for telling me that. What I'm going to do is do a little homework on that this week, and maybe try to get you guys up to speed on some of the stuff going on with that by weekend. Listen, tomorrow I do got a video coming out that I really want you guys to check out, and it's going to be kind of detailed on this lawsuit of Sullivan v. Ferguson by the Firearms Policy Coalition, Second Amendment Foundation, all of that. That's the lawsuit that's going to try to overturn Senate Bill 5078, try to get an injunction on it before it goes into a law July 1st, okay? D Perfect tells me one of my buddy's forms took 365 days. This is just really, really discouraging to hear that. It really is. So listen, all right. Guys, we're almost at the top of the hour, so let me just conclude with a couple of other comments here. Like I say, check out Security's website over the next couple of months, because Washington Gun Law is going to start doing more live education programs over there. I would love to see you guys come by. We're going to be doing classes on singular topics, and we're also going to be doing classes on the rules of self-defense. Huge shout out to the folks at Palmetto State Armory who are looking out for all of you by prioritizing all the shipping to Washington State until July 1st. We are going to probably tomorrow cross 45,000 subscribers at Washington Gun Law. So when we started this channel about a year ago, I never really figured that we could get much more than about 25,000 subscribers. I mean, it's a channel dedicated to gun laws in a state up here tucked away in the corner of the country, little old Washington. but we're almost at 45,000 subscribers now. And why? Because people like you, all 200 some plus of you who tuned in tonight for this live thing, all of you have been out there spreading the word about Washington gun law. Thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Listen, and remember, the only way you can ensure that you stay the lawful and responsible gun owner is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Hopefully, we're going to get some summer. This has been the shittiest spring I can ever remember. So hopefully we finally turn the corner. We get some summer. We're going to skip July 4th because we all got better things to do. See if I can get a chat together on Gun Trust, and we'll be back the first Monday of August. In the meantime, all of you guys, please stay safe. Thank you.